sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding in all. Gather in peace, in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Montgomery online worship for May 3rd, 2020. My name is Lynn Hopkins, and it is my honor to serve this congregation as its minister. For whatever reason you find yourself here, no matter where you've been, what you believe, or how you feel, I am so glad that you have joined us here. Let us begin. I invite you into this hour of worship with words from Jane Hirshfield. More and more I have come to admire resilience, not the simple resistance of a pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree. Finding the light newly blocked on one side, it turns in another. A blind intelligence, true, but out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs, all this resinous, unretractable earth. I invite you to join me, if you would like, in speaking our congregational covenant. We, the members and friends of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Montgomery, promise to serve our community with open minds, willing hearts, and helping hands as we respect one another, honoring that our perceptions may differ, value our differences, working to better understand them in conflict, give joyfully of ourselves, being in harmony with our capabilities, and embrace our connections with each other, nature, the global community, and the great mystery of life.
Hi there, welcome to the May 3rd edition of Time for All Ages. I hope you don't mind my pandemic look. We're just going with it today. We're reading Loser, Why Fit In When You Can Stand Out by Jerry Spinelli. I have to say that I am reading this book with permission from HarperCollins Children's Books, and also the author Jerry Spinelli himself says he thinks this is great. I will summarize chapter 21 right now and then part of chapter 22. So, chapter 21, something hard and thorny. David Zinkoff, our protagonist, he's 11 years old. He's in the 5th grade. He got accepted onto the field day team, but really some of the other people, one guy in particular, did not want him on the team. That was upsetting to him. So rather than go to school one day, he simply goes for a walk. An elderly woman that he knows invites him into her house. He's glad to see her. He goes in, they have a great day, they eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they talk. He's so happy to have somebody to talk to so freely. His eyes get teary. He loses track of time. He ends up spending the entire day at this woman's house. And when he goes home, he feels great. I will summarize chapter 22. Well, fast forward. Now we're at graduation. 5th grade graduation. Zinkoff plays the flute in the orchestra. A couple of times his flute makes an awful noise. It makes the director wince, but Donald doesn't seem to notice. He looks into the audience. He does not see his family. Awards go out for the best this and the best that. Donald does not win an award. He sees his favorite teacher standing in the back of the room. It's Mr. Yalowitz. And it hits Zinkoff that he's about to leave elementary school. He gets emotional. He looks around and he loves everything suddenly and everybody, and he wants to hug the walls. But he still doesn't see his family. Zinkoff is thinking so hard about his missing family that he doesn't hear his own name get called. The principal looks around as if Zinkoff might be up in the air somewhere. He says again, this time with a question mark, Donald Zinkoff? Zinkoff suddenly snaps to. He jumps up. He lurches for the principal, but he catches his foot on the chair of the clarinetist beside him, and he goes sprawling to the floor. The flute goes clattering. The audience explodes in laughter, but he doesn't blame them. What a goofus, he thinks. He joins in the laughter. He scrambles after the flute, picks himself up, takes a bow, and resumes his journey. He finally gets up there and it's quiet again, and again he's hoping and wondering about his family. The tabletop that had held the stack of diplomas is now bare. The last one is in the superintendent's hand. Boondocks forever! Zinkoff reaches for it, but instead he receives the superintendent's huge, wet paw. He wants to shake his hand. He shakes it. He stands at attention. He declares, Zinkoff reporting, sir! The superintendent gives him a grin, a brief half salute, and at last gives Donald Zinkoff his 5th grade diploma. And in the audience, at that moment, someone shrieks, Go, Donald! The voice is familiar. He looks. It's his sister, Polly. They've been there the whole time, right there in the middle. He missed them. His parents were clapping with their hands above their heads. And in the very back of the audience, in the very back of the auditorium, standing against the wall, there's Mr. Yalowitz, who smiles and sends him 2 thumbs up. And that gets us to the end of chapter 22. We are getting very close to the end. The next chapter is chapter 23, and it's called Vanished. Let's find out next week. Have a really great week.
Each week in our gathering, we take a moment to lift up and share the joys and sorrows that we have carried with us through the week. It is a time of communal connection and prayer. I invite you during this time to Write the things that are on your mind into the chat box if you're here with us during the live worship hour. Allow us to know what it is that is in your heart this morning. There are so many things on my heart today in a world that has been virtually turned upside down in so many respects. We live separately, apart from one another. The more that we care for one another in this hour, the more important it is to us to maintain distance. We love each other by staying away. At the same time, those who live with chronic illness, with persistent pain, with various forms of disability or impediment that prevents them from enjoying life in the same ways as others around them, may feel this time especially hard. So right now I want to lift up those who live with physically disabling conditions, those for whom being sheltered at home is nothing new. I want to lift up those who live with chronic mental challenges, with depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and other conditions that can make social contact more difficult and yet all the more necessary. I lift up those who live with various forms of neurodivergence on the autism spectrum, for whom making connections and maintaining connections can hold special challenges. I want to lift up all of those who suffer in ways that are largely unknown to those around them. And I also want to honor and celebrate those who care for others in ways that are largely unknown to those around them. Those who have friends and family members who need special assistance and attention. It is an honor to care for one another and to be invited into the space of vulnerability for a loved one. And yet the burden and fatigue at times can be overwhelming. May all of those people know that we understand and see, even in those times that we fail to acknowledge. The connections are true and solid among all of us. And so at this time, let us take in the beautiful melody and lyric of Spirit of Life. Sing along if you're moved. I always am.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The fact that we don't pass the basket these days does not diminish in any way the need of our fellowship for financial resources. So I hope that you are pledging and maintaining your pledge. If you're having trouble doing so, please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you no matter the reason, but I especially want to know if you're facing difficulty in this time. If you are not pledging, I hope that you will find a way to make a contribution to support the ongoing life of our congregation. We are getting ready now for our annual meeting in which we will review next year's budget, and it's going to be hard to know how much we will have available and what we will be able to do. All members will be invited to see and review and vote on all of the details of the budget in June, so watch your email for details about the annual meeting.
I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There is a hurting in my family, and there is sorrow in my town. There is a panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me it dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of
In my undergraduate studies, I had the opportunity to take a course in the history of world religions. Of course, I knew how absurd it was to take on such a topic in a single semester, but I figured it would be fun and interesting. The professor had a reputation as an engaging and challenging lecturer. And although I would have extended each week of the course into its own full semester, I found it worthwhile. But I remember it most for a conversation I had with Dr. Welburn one day after class. I asked him a question, a simple question that defies a simple answer. What do we mean by religion? The common conception of religion, I said, deals with deity, what people believe about God. But a religion like Buddhism has no common conception of deity. Some schools of Buddhism make claims about divine essence. Some don't address the question of God at all. On the other hand, Alcoholics Anonymous makes specific claims about God while adamantly denying that it is religious. So if we are studying the history of world religions, what does that actually mean? And he agreed. The word is ambiguous and has multiple meanings, but he offered a definition that he said worked for him. Religion, according to Dr. Robert Welburn, asks what is the central problem facing mankind, and what is the answer. So that for Buddhism, the central problem is suffering, and the answer is non-attachment. For Christianity, the problem is human depravity and separation from God, and the answer is rebirth through Jesus. With careful analysis, each religious system can be broken down and understood in this way. The model has its weaknesses, but generally speaking, it works pretty well. It also helps me understand how human beings in the same culture can take such very different religious paths. What is the answer to life's existential challenge? For some, it may be a sense of security, of knowing that no matter what is happening now, we are safe and destined for a happy ending. God's got this. For others, perhaps a sense of connection with all humanity or with all life. We are one. For others still, the ultimate answer is knowing the truth with a capital T, whether it be pleasant or unpleasant. Now, this is not to say that we as individuals wouldn't have more than one ideal or ultimate quest. There cannot be a single goal to the exclusion of others. Worthwhile pursuits intersect, overlap, may even conflict with each other. Even if we're able to narrow it down, there may be different answers depending on context. A quick review of our 7 principles makes that clear. Justice, equity, compassion, connection, freedom, responsibility, empathy. These and more are lifted up as religious ideals, core principles for Unitarian Universalism. We dedicate our lives to a singular religious pursuit without defining for ourselves what is the answer, capital A. Maybe it is really just an academic matter, at least for many of us. For me, though, I think it matters what we love most, even if that is larger than any language can capture. Limited to the tools that English language provides, for me, I would say that my own religious quest would be best described as integrity, wholeness. Now, there's another word with multiple layers and branches of meaning. Integrity can refer to unyielding loyalty, or to uncompromising honesty, or to structural stability. The Latin meaning of the root translates best to English as wholeness, unified and all-inclusive oneness. The idea of integrity more often than not implies challenge. It implies calling on strengths we may not even know we have, enduring hardship, bearing up under pressure. If you're working in a space of competing interests where money and power are at stake, integrity may mean doing the right thing even though you could suffer for it. In an intimate relationship, it might mean resisting temptation, even if you're sure you would never be found out. In a situation of interpersonal conflict, it could mean dealing directly with a person or a topic that causes you great discomfort, rather than triangulating or avoiding. Integrity in law enforcement and penal systems means acting justly and truthfully, declining to use undue force or deceit to achieve an aim. But integrity is more than just bearing up and pushing forward under stress. Integrity is a word of good news and assurance. In times of relentless pressure and stress, integrity can be a source of greatest hope. Here are words from Jo Lillian Zwerdling. From starfish, I have learned that if we keep our core intact, we can regenerate. We can fall apart, lose limbs, and regrow them as long as we don't let anyone threaten that central disk's integrity. We can grow many different arms, depending on what kind of sea star we are. We have to nourish ourselves with the resources we are surrounded by. And in doing so, we help keep ecosystems delicately balanced. So, surely integrity is a virtue, a religious and existential ideal quality. But can we really say that it is a religious core, an answer, capital A, writ large for Unitarian Universalism? If we're considering it as an individual personal quality, then I think not. Unitarian Universalism has a well-earned reputation as oriented toward a strident, even toxic individualism. We have Ralph Waldo Emerson to thank for this critical flaw, and many of us have worked hard over the years to overcome and heal from the toxicity of egocentric religious thinking. Considering integrity as a personal trait, as a strength of character, may be a symptom of this very individualism. Integrity really gains its force, its ultimacy, its value as a religious principle when considered in terms of community. Individual people, sure, but more importantly, bodies of people, diverse, always changing, often chaotic, unity even in times of internal conflict. A congregation, literally a flocking together, or a covenant, literally going and coming together. Integrity of community incorporates the individual and the collective. When we observe the corruption and depravity of so many religious institutions, it is their lack of integrity that we see. In order to be whole and true, a collective body must have leadership that seeks to serve rather than be served. Wholeness, integrity of community also requires a collective effort to sustain the individual and individual dedication to the collective well-being. Of course, as nuanced and complex as personal integrity can be, communal integrity is much more complicated. Consider the analogy of the human body. The very healthiest body includes an enormous number of cells that are dead or near death. Furthermore, the human body is made up of a great deal that is not human. That is, if you could number the cells, you'd find that your body has as much as 10 times as many non-human cells, bacteria and other single-celled organisms. 10 times as many of those as the human cells that contain your DNA. So, what seems like an entity with distinct boundaries, your body, is far more than that. And the same is true of social organisms, like a community of worship. Our fellowship is composed of all of its members, and all of those members carry all manner of other organisms into the larger body. Families, histories, private lives, conflicts, all of these things are part of who we are. How could such a thing have integrity? The simplest answer, and maybe the best, is that wholeness derives from a body's mission or purpose. We, as a group of people, this fellowship, we do not have a unified conscience. It's one of the main critiques of modern liberalism, this idea that people, nations and institutions, groups of people, can function like individuals, but do not have a moral compass. It's a simple fact that groups do not have a conscience, so we lean on our mission, our declared common purpose, as a way to call each of us back to center, to core, to the collective truths of our collective organism, a mission that is basic and central to who we are, unifying across time and through diversity. Our mission: love, justice, community. Practicing love, doing justice, building community. That mission, the one that this congregation wrote, that mission, as long as we embrace it, can give us the assurance of continuity and health for our fellowship. It is our integrity. If we commit to leadership that serves and membership that leads, and investing our energies and assets into being who we are as a fellowship, we are strong and always stronger. These days you may feel like that starfish with all the arms cut off. But the fact that you're logged in here says that you are still you in your core. Even when we feel completely broken, that core integrity remains. The arms or whiskers or tails or whatever you imagine has been stripped away. Those will grow back. They may be different, but they are not lost. Whatever is part of you truly is not lost. We may just have to take shelter for a time, avoid unnecessary threats as our bare bodies are fully restored. And UUFM, our gathered body, may have its arms lopped off right now while we cannot gather in body. Our core remains. Our mission lives in our hearts, and our dedication to that mission continues to call us and challenge us and stir us to action. So in the meantime, let us tend to that core, our own individual cores as well as the core of the fellowship. We prepare now for an annual meeting as required by our bylaws at the end of June this year. For the first time in history, we will gather electronically. There are a lot of things we need to figure out to ensure that everyone who wants to attend is able, to ensure that every vote of every member is counted, to ensure that the fibers of our being as a fellowship are cared for, looked after, and healthy. Membership looks and feels a bit different in these times, but it is still of great importance to our life as a collective body. In that vein, we'll have a series on membership on Wednesday evenings starting this week. In the tradition of First Wednesdays, but I'll be convening every Wednesday evening for now, except as conflicts arise. Watch your email for details. We haven't worked out how to execute the official joining ceremony in virtual space, and the bylaws impose some requirements, but we're working on that. Joining and participation in membership continues, even as it evolves. It is our core, and our core remains solid. New arms grow from this starfish, new abilities, new understanding, new practices, new strength. The old has passed away, but continues to inspire and inform our present. And integrity, wholeness, the essence of who we are as Unitarian Universalists, as the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Montgomery, that continues on. Join me on Wednesday evening if you're free and inclined, and I hope that you will join us as well for the second hour conversation on Zoom after the service. And for now, our service has ended. May our service begin.
When I go outside at night and look up and the stars are bright, sometimes I lay on the ground and imagine that the sky is down. And if the earth should then let go, I'd fall into the stars below. I'd fall into the stars below. I see the red sunset in its quiet splendor, I reflect that sun's not going down at all, but the earth is turning somersaults. And through his sunlit sea trails, we are on that great big whale. We're riding on that great big whale. When I try to grasp the simple fact of this existence, think of all the fantasies, fairy tales and wishes, none strike me as more unlikely or magnificent than this is. Hands and faces seen up close, galaxies through telescopes, crimson hillsides in the fall, and more astounding than them all are pondering minds with eyes that see. These are deep mysteries, deep mysteries. I try to grasp the simple fact of this existence, think of all the fantasies, fairy tales and wishes, none strike me as more unlikely or magnificent than this is. Like a strange enchanting play of impossible dimensions, the setting and the stage run light years in all directions, and the breathless scenes, the storyline defy comprehension. Think of all the roles in this production, all I know is I'm in the cast, but could it be I'm also in the front row seat to sit in my amazement, gazing to ooh and ah, to sigh and say, my, what a wonderful play. My,